All right, so we've got a ton of stuff here about this Pam Bondi nomination. It's for Attorney General, right?
Yep, that's right.
Seems like it's been everywhere in the news lately, but
Yeah,
let's try to figure this out. See
absolutely.
if we can get to the bottom of what's actually going on here.
Yeah, and I think to really do that, we need to start with the first guy, Matt Gaetz,
Oh yeah.
and why he dropped out all of a sudden.
Right, because I remember seeing his name and
Mm.
everything, like Trump's pick for Attorney General, but then all of a sudden it was just gone. Like what happened?
Well, Gaetz, he was a congressman before
Oh,
and a
okay.
big Trump guy, so him being nominated wasn't really a surprise.
Yeah.
He's known as being pretty conservative
Yeah.
and super loyal to Trump.
So it seemed like he was a pretty safe pick. I mean, for the job.
Yeah, on paper maybe.
Yeah.
But then shortly after he was nominated, all these allegations came out about a second encounter with a minor. It's important to say, though, that Gaetz says he didn't do anything wrong, and there haven't been any charges or anything.
Okay, but I'm guessing even so, those allegations still cause some problems.
Oh, yeah.
Did they have anything to do with him, withdrawing?
Absolutely. The Wall Street Journal said that while Gaetz was meeting with these senators to try and get the votes he needed to be confirmed,
Right.
an ethics report was going around about the allegations, but it wasn't public.
Hold on. An unpublished ethics report. What does that even mean?
So these reports, they aren't for everyone to see,
Right.
but they matter a lot in the Senate. When they're deciding if someone's ethical or not, it's very likely that Gaetz saw what was happening
Uh-huh.
and realized he didn't have the votes he needed to be confirmed because of that report.
So instead of going through this big, messy confirmation hearing with all that hanging over him, he just stepped down.
Exactly. I mean, it would have been a huge distraction, not just for Gaetz, but for the whole Trump administration. And you have to remember, this was all happening as Trump's about to start his second term. He needs the Justice Department to be working from day one. And this whole thing was making that really hard.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so Gaetz is out. And then we have Pam Bondi. Now, you actually had her name highlighted in your notes before Gaetz was even nominated.
Right.
What made you think she was a possibility even back then?
Bondi was on a lot of people's lists for Attorney General. She's a favorite among Republicans, and she's supported Trump for a long time. A lot of people see her as a stalwart conservative ally.
So what does that even mean?
Yeah.
For what we can expect if she becomes Attorney General?
Well, being a stalwart conservative ally means that she's been really behind Trump's policies for years.
Okay.
So this could mean she focuses on stuff like immigration enforcement
Mm-hmm.
or deregulation, things like that, kind of lining up with what Trump did before.
So are you saying that her appointment could be a sign that Trump's agenda is going to just keep going? Maybe even get stronger in a second term?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. Plus, she has strong ties to Florida, which is a key state for Trump, right?
Hmm.
And then there are all the political connections that happen at Mar-a-Lago.
Right, so Bondi getting nominated isn't just about her qualifications.
Yeah.
It's about her relationship with Trump, her politics,
Yeah,
and her potential influence in a swing state
exactly.
like Florida.
Exactly. And this is where things get really interesting. Because to really understand the impact she might have if she becomes Attorney General, we need to look at her record in Florida when she was Attorney General there,
Right. Okay, let's get into that.
Yeah.
You have a whole section of notes here about her time in Florida.
Yeah.
What were some of the main things she did? And the controversies and all that. And how might those experiences affect how she approaches being Attorney General
Yeah.
if she gets the job?
Okay. So when she was Attorney General in Florida, Bondi really focused on protecting consumers,
Okay.
especially after that whole housing crisis.
Right.
She went after companies that were doing fraudulent foreclosures and helped get millions of dollars in relief for homeowners.
So she's got experience taking on these big companies
Yeah.
and fighting for the average person.
Yeah, you could say that. She also made fighting opioid abuse a big priority, which actually lines up with what Trump was talking about when he announced her nomination. Remember, he specifically mentioned her work trying to stop the trafficking of those really dangerous drugs
Yeah.
and reducing fentanyl overdoses.
It seems like a smart move to highlight those things. It makes Bondi look like a strong leader.
With experience, ready to handle a big national problem.
Exactly. It's a way to kind of control the story and present her nomination in a good light, especially after all the controversy with Gaetz dropping out.
Right. But you mentioned that there were some controversies while she was in Florida. What were some of the criticisms against her?
One of the biggest ones was about her decision not to investigate Trump University.
Okay.
after they got all these complaints from former students who said it was a fraud.
Wait, Trump University, like the real estate seminar.
Yep, the same one, run by Donald Trump. People criticized Bondi, saying she didn't investigate because Trump had donated $25,000 to a political group that was supporting her re-election campaign. Oh, wow. That does seem kind of suspicious.
Yeah.
Did she ever respond to those criticisms?
Bondi said that the timing of the donation and her decision not to investigate were just a coincidence. She insisted there was no connection.
But I can see why people would be skeptical, especially now that she's been nominated by the same guy whose business she chose not to look into.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It definitely makes it seem like Bondi's super loyal to Trump and might put his interests first, instead of being impartial and making sure justice is served.
So we've got this possible conflict of interest hanging over everything, but let's change gears for a second and talk about the bigger picture. What are some of the biggest issues or challenges you think Bondi will face if she becomes Attorney General?
Well, one of the biggest is going to be dealing with the political climate. Things are so divided right now, and the Justice Department often gets caught in the middle of it all.
So you're saying there's a risk that the DOJ will be seen as just a tool for political agendas, instead of an independent organization that upholds the law?
Exactly. Bondi's going to have to show everyone that she can make decisions based on evidence and legal precedent, not just because of who she's loyal to.
Right. And how could her appointment affect how much people trust the Justice Department?
That's a really important question. It'll be interesting to see how she handles it, especially with everyone watching her so closely. The things she does and the decisions she makes will definitely have a big impact on how the public sees the DOJ.
So we've got this situation where the first nominee, a big Trump supporter, drops out because of these allegations. And then almost right away, another strong Trump ally with possible conflicts of interest is nominated to take his place. It seems like every move here is carefully planned to avoid damage and control how the story is told.
It really shows how personal relationships, political alliances, and strategic thinking all come together to shape these political appointments, especially at this level. It's rarely simple.
And it brings up so many questions about what this means for the Justice Department going forward and for the whole country.
Yeah, one of the biggest questions is how Bondi will handle things like immigration, criminal justice reform, and voting rights, all those areas where Trump's policies have been really controversial.
So what you're saying is that her appointment could have a big impact on the lives of millions of Americans, depending on how she uses the power of the Justice Department.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to understand her background, her beliefs, and any biases she might have.
Okay, so we've talked about Bondi's history in Florida, the potential conflicts of interest, and the broader challenges she might face if she gets the job. Now let's bring it back to you, the listener.
We've looked at all the information you sent us, and it seems like Bondi's appointment could be a sign that Trump's agenda from his first term is going to continue, and maybe even get stronger.
But it also raises some serious questions about those possible conflicts of interest and whether the Justice Department will become too political.
Exactly. It's a situation that needs to be watched very carefully. And we encourage you to stay informed and involved as things develop with Bondi.
Wow. You've really given us a lot to think about with this whole Pam Bondi thing. It's like we started peeling back the layers, and with every layer, there's something new, something that could be a problem.
Yeah, I like that. It really shows how these appointments that seem pretty straightforward can actually have big consequences, you know, like a ripple effect.
Exactly. We started with Matt Gaetz, who seemed like a sure thing, but then drops out because of those allegations.
Yeah.
And then Bondi comes in. She's super close to Trump, and there are those possible conflicts of interest. It feels like we're watching them play politics right in front of us.
Yeah, it's a fascinating example of how power works and political strategy and how they try to balance loyalty with being impartial and making sure justice is done.
Okay, so we've gone over the facts. We've looked at what could happen. Now let's bring it back to you, the listener. What does all this mean for you?
We talked about Bondi's record in Florida, how close she is to Trump, and how she might put his agenda first. But here's something to think about.
Yeah, what's the big takeaway?
What if Bondi decides to focus on investigating voter fraud, which is a really important issue for Trump? How could that affect the next election, especially in those states that could go either way? Could it change how people vote? Or even make them not want to vote at all?
That's a really good point. It's like this nomination isn't just about one person getting a job. It's about how it could change things across the whole political landscape.
Exactly. And it shows how the decisions made by people at the top levels of government can directly affect your life. your community,
Hmm.
and the future of the country.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want you to leave here with a sense of curiosity. Keep your eyes open, stay involved, and keep asking those tough questions. Because in politics, it's often the little details that matter the most.
I agree. And remember, knowledge is power. The more you know, the better you'll be able to understand how our political system works and make your voice heard.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Pam Bondi's nomination for Attorney General. We'll be back soon with another interesting topic, so be sure to tune in.